Hi, welcome to Coding Bootcamp's YouTube channel. Subscribe now and join our live stream session later. See you.
Thank you for considering this course, Introduction to Blockchain Cybersecurity, a presentation of Coding Bootcamps. In this course, we will discuss cybersecurity solutions using blockchain. A little bit about the instructor for this course, Jim Sullivan. Jim has a Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering and a Master of Science in Computer Science, and also has an MBA. Jim is an IBM Master Instructor, an instructor for O'Reilly Media, and an instructor and developer at DC Webmakers. As a software engineer, Jim works with a blockchain team to develop applications. Jim works with DevOps, cloud, general web and mobile application development, and is a safe, agile methodologist. Jim is an expert in blockchain platforms such as Hyperledger, Ethereum, and Corda. The highly recommended prerequisites for this class: Introduction to Cybersecurity and Introduction to Blockchain Technology. Both of these classes are offered by Coding Bootcamps. The topics covered in this class: an overview of blockchain and some blockchain networks such as Ethereum, the Hyperledger Fabric blockchain, the foundation of blockchain security, and advanced cryptographic techniques and methods associated with blockchain. We'll look at network-related vulnerabilities of the blockchain, as well as the types of attacks and responses. Also, we'll look at user-related vulnerabilities of the blockchain, the different types of attacks and defending against them. Smart contract-related vulnerabilities, the types of attacks and ways to defend. We'll also look at security alternative DLT architectures. DLT stands for distributed ledger technology, and blockchain is an example of distributed ledger technology. And we will also have a smart contract lab where we'll actually see how to secure an Ethereum smart contract against two different types of attacks: re-entry and access control. As for takeaways from this class, this is what you'll learn by finishing this class: the basics of blockchain and an introduction to the basics of blockchain, and an introduction to blockchain solutions for cybersecurity. Some additional follow-up classes: Hyperledger Fabric for administrators, Hyperledger Fabric for developers, Ethereum blockchain development, and an introduction to Python programming. Thank you again for considering this course in blockchain cybersecurity presented by Coding Bootcamps, and we'll see you in the session. Hello, and welcome to this course, Introduction to Blockchain Cybersecurity. This course is a presentation of Coding Bootcamps. My name is Jim Sullivan. I am your instructor. Before we get into the cybersecurity, let's take a look at how blockchain works. Two prerequisite courses: Introduction to Blockchain Technology and Introduction to Cybersecurity. Both of these courses are offered by Coding Bootcamps. Please consult your learning materials. So a little bit about blockchain fundamentals. There are more than 1,500 blockchain projects currently in flight. These are major projects according to CoinCap Market. Services to several industries include mostly financial transactions, but transactions on other assets. Current net worth is about $259 billion. Blockchain solutions are about to grow by 75% through 2022. That's according to IDC. Worldwide annual revenue is about to be about $20 billion by 2025, and Bitcoin it's very volatile, but it's now worth near $120 billion. So a blockchain is a database. Certainly it's a repository of data. It's in the form of a ledger and has, well, let's just say now, two distinct properties. It's chronological, and it's decentralized. So blockchain runs on a distributed network. Again, it's decentralized. It is immutable. Its public blockchains are anonymous. However, private blockchains can be named. It's fully traceable and can run applications called smart contracts. So the basic components of a blockchain are the node, or the host or computer on which the blockchain is running, the block itself, and the ledger. And this is a good picture right here because it shows these are individual nodes. We can see it's hosting, the nodes are hosting the blocks, and we can see here the blocks are generally the same. We can see block 22, block 23 exist on all of the nodes. The facts, however, are slightly different because each of these nodes are processing transactions that are coming in from users. So the individual miners that organize this network and run all these nodes are updating their nodes by processing transactions. So a user or computer with a blockchain for Bitcoin, we can see here, if we talk about nodes, nodes generally have the ledger. There is one ledger for Bitcoin. There is one ledger for Ethereum. And there's one ledger for other blockchains or distributed ledgers technology products as well. However, in Bitcoin, Ethereum, there is one copy of the ledger. The nodes can vary slightly. So we can have nodes that look more toward mining and specialize in that. We can have full nodes that have everything. They do mining. They have the full copies of the ledger, and light nodes that have a subset of what's on the full node. And this really is just to save resources. And we can see here the nodes are all connected on a fully distributed peer-to-peer network. So very, very difficult to attack the blockchain, because if any of these nodes come under attack, they can be taken offline. And then when the attack is stopped, they can be brought back online, and all of the data can be relayed back to that node to bring it fully back online. Blocks contain the actual data, so they contain the continuous transactions. So where one block stops, the next block begins. Blocks are sized just for organizational purposes and prevent runaway blocks. And as we can see here, there is a hashing function that's used to hash the data. Hashes are very sensitive to changes that actually change. So we can see the hash of this block is part of the data for the next block, and the hash of this block is part of the data for the next block. Right there, these are the blocks that contain data, and they are chained by hashes. So the internals of a block. So what's the structure? Well, we have a block size, and then we have header information, which contains timestamps, version informations, Merkle root trees we'll get into, the previous block hash, a transaction counter, and then the list of transactions. And the transactions really are, well, in the case of Bitcoin or Ethereum, the current asset, who owns it, and then who owns the next asset, so the transaction information for transferring that asset to another owner. So again, here we see the block structure. We have data, and we have the hashing functions that link them together. And all of these blocks will exist on a node. So all of these blocks all exist on a node, and these nodes are replicated throughout the network. If we take a look at a ledger in Bitcoin or Ethereum is very similar to a financial or a bank ledger. It's stating the transactions and the current status of assets. So we can see here what the assets are and who owns them. And the ledgers here have the transaction data, and they are listing, again, how the transactions are proceeding. So somebody makes a transaction to purchase an item, and an amount of cryptocurrency goes from one ID to another ID, and that's exactly what is being tracked in these blocks. So quick actual demo. We can see here we've listed some details of a block here, or a ledger, and we can see here the details for this asset. We can see that there's been an update in some information. There are transaction IDs. TXID typically means transaction ID, and that's what it is in this case. We can see a name, and we can see this name has been updated. Some contact information has been updated. Some email has been updated. So these are attributes that go along with the ownership information for an asset. Now, obviously, this is not anonymous because this is a screenshot from a private blockchain where the transactors want to know one another. If this was a public blockchain, we wouldn't see any of this. It would all be we would only see one ID, which is called a wallet ID. So let's have another look at the ledger in a simplified form. So a ledger, you could think of it as cells in a spreadsheet. We can see here the individual transactions are occurring. T1, T2 are all occurring here on the ledger. And then this one single, so this is what would exist on an individual node. Then we would have this same ledger replicated on many nodes. And then all of the individual nodes would have miners who actually organize and run the node, and they are all assisting in keeping the blockchain organized, and they are processing and clearing the transactions. So working with a blockchain, a transaction is generated, and there is a creation of a block, and what happens is the block has transactions written to it. Ultimately, we need to come to consensus because these blocks and the ledger all have to be synchronized, so they all have to be the same. Once we determine which is the block which is going to be the block that has what we call the truth or all the correct transactions, it's broadcasted and validated by the rest of the network, and then it is added to the full ledger. Well, consensus obviously has to be a big part of this process. And there are consensus algorithms in blockchains. One is called a proof of work. Another is called a proof of stake. There are others as well that are being experimented with and being looked at. Currently, the most popular is proof of work and proof of stake. Proof of work is by far the most popular. However, it does consume a lot of resources. And the idea is that the miners, when they update and clear the incoming transactions, they run a very difficult mathematical puzzle to find the hash for that particular block. So it validates that the miners are actually doing the work on the block. It validates that they are contributing electricity and computing power to the Bitcoin network. Now, once a miner wins that proof of work, so if he or she is the first to solve that puzzle, the other nodes will validate that they indeed have the same transactions. They quickly vote, and then that new block is relayed to the rest of the blockchain network. And then the winning miner is paid a reward in, well, if it's Bitcoin, it's Bitcoin. If it's Ethereum, they're paid in Ethereum. So let's discuss smart contracts. So a smart contract it's a computer code. It's an application. It is usually run between two or more parties. It's used on a blockchain and consists of a set of rules which make up an agreement, very similar to a legal agreement. And how is it used? Well, the rules, it can be just as simple. If a certain condition is met,
Thanks for watching. Feel free to add your questions as comments down below.
Money is paid from one user to another. So the cryptocurrency goes from one wallet to another wallet. And that continues till the work is finished. So this we could see here, it's evaluating rules. It's going through some type of, this might be a escrow type of approach. So where one party sends their cryptocurrency to what they call an escrow, and then as certain conditions are met, those assets then are transferred to the other party. So in summary, the blockchain is a fully distributed set of nodes. It's a ledger. It's a ledger made up of small blocks, which can be compared to cells in a spreadsheet. There's, in the case of Bitcoin, in the case of Ethereum, there is one single copy of the ledger. Since we have many people working on it, it can drift a little bit, and we saw examples of that, how the data in there can drift. So we have to come up with a consensus to synchronize to make sure everybody has the same copy, and that occurs about every 15 minutes or so. Block times can vary slightly, and we validate those transactions in there, and then we move on to the next block. In the next lesson, we are going to have an introduction to Ethereum. And again, please consult your training materials for these courses, Hyperledger System Admin courses. Again, we can see here all System Admin, Hyperledger Fabric for developers. Learn Solidity by example. So Solidity is a popular language for writing smart contracts. Introduction to Ethereum, Introduction to Development for Corda. And there are also private tutoring sessions available for blockchain. So again, please look into, if you're interested in any of these courses, again, please consult your training materials. And again, thank you for watching this lesson, and we'll see you in the next lesson. Welcome back to this course, Introduction to Blockchain Cybersecurity, a presentation of coding boot camps. In this lesson, we are going to talk about the Ethereum blockchain. Again, please consult your learning materials for these two highly recommended prerequisite courses, Introduction to Blockchain Technology and Introduction to Cybersecurity. So let's take a look at Ethereum. So Ethereum is a blockchain. It's very similar in structure and architecture to Bitcoin. It was founded by a group of Bitcoin developers led by a developer by the name of Vitalik Buterin, and it went live at the end of 2015. This is the Ethereum community. Ethereum is a public blockchain, and there is a single copy of the ledger. Ethereum is more than just digital money. Ethereum considers itself a smart contract network, and it runs something called the Ethereum virtual machine, which allows for development of smart contracts. So it includes wallets and distributed applications, accounts. So everything that Bitcoin has, Ethereum has, but Ethereum also layers on the tools for running smart contracts. So the Ethereum virtual machine is a development runtime environment for the applications that run on Ethereum. And it's designed to be development programming language neutral. And the EVM supports high-level programming languages such as C++, Java, Solidity, Python, JavaScript, and more. And the way that the EVM works is very similar to the Java virtual machine. A developer writes his or her code locally, and they send it to the Ethereum virtual machine to be compiled, and then that compiled bytecode runs on the Ethereum network. And the EVM can run any type of application. The Ethereum software is open source. Again, here is the community. It is a public blockchain-based platform that also supports smart contracts. A smart contract can even be implemented between parties that don't trust one another, because that's what Ethereum is doing. It's providing that trust. So we don't need third parties to validate and clear our transactions. And the transactions obviously are messages sent by externally owned Ethereum accounts to transfer value. And gas, so gas, that's a term on Ethereum. Gas is the transaction fees. So you have to pay something to have your transactions cleared on Ethereum. So the miners and the Ethereum network get a small fee, and it's a very, very small fee compared to fees for typical third-party transactions. But those fees are called gas. And you have to purchase gas, and gas is paid in Ether, which is the Ethereum native token. It needs to be purchased, and it goes into your Ethereum wallet that you will use when you're interacting with the Ethereum blockchain. So let's take a look at a setup for building an Ethereum application, and that'll run on the Ethereum blockchain. To begin building your environment, the best place to start is with the Truffle suite. The Truffle is a suite of tools. That allows us to build smart contracts and interact with a blockchain. And what Truffle gives us is, and these are the Ethereum tools. This tool is called Ganache, and it is a local Ethereum node. And we can also build a local Ethereum project. So we can have our contracts here. We can have our contracts compiled for us. And you can see here, this is a smart contract. It has been compiled for us. This is some HTML code we can use, and we can also use code called Web3. And Web3 is JavaScript that works with an Ethereum node. So we can actually, and then we can use another tool called MetaMask. As you can see, this is starting to run here. MetaMask will contact, we can see here this address that it is connecting to here, will connect to our Ethereum node, and we can see the address here is the same. It ends in A666, and we can see here this is ending in A666 if we look back here. So we can actually see that the connection is being made from our browser back, and in short order we will actually begin to carry on transactions here. So in summary, Ethereum provides all of the same cybersecurity tools of any blockchain, plus it has all the features to write blockchain applications or smart contracts. And please stay tuned for our next lesson. Is going to be an introduction to Hyperledger Fabric. And again, please look at your learning materials for any kind of private blockchain or blockchain cybersecurity classes. And thank you for attending this session. Good day, and welcome back to this course, Introduction to Blockchain Cybersecurity, again a presentation of coding boot camps. In this lesson, we are going to discuss Hyperledger Fabric. So, Hyperledger blockchain is actually an ecosystem. It consists of multiple parts: distributed ledgers, libraries, tools, and domain-specific projects. The framework of projects includes here Burrow, Fabric, Iroha, and Sawtooth. So if you go onto the Hyperledger website, you'll see all of these. There's also library projects as well, tool projects, Cello, Explorer, Explorer is probably the best known, and then there are domain-specific projects. Here's one grid building. The Hyperledger framework architecture consists of a consensus layer, smart contracts. There is a database, and there is peer networking. So understanding Fabric. So Fabric is used to build a private blockchain, which is different from the public blockchains such as Bitcoin and Ethereum. On Bitcoin and Ethereum, all users are anonymous, so we only see their wallet addresses. This obviously will not work very well in business. In business, we have to know the parties that we are working with, and we also have to know permissions. So public blockchains are permissionless. The nodes are deterministic, which means that they can be relied upon to return the same value every time. They are permissioned and they are pluggable. So again, Hyperledger is a permission blockchain for business, which enables known parties to transact. Hyperledger does not have all the same nodes, and it does not have a single ledger. So a peer is a node, and it can be a virtual or physical machine. And then there's an ordering service, which is also a node. And these are, it's responsible for time-stamping transactions. CA also has a credential authority, and the Fabric ledger is a database for storing the transactions that results from the two parties, and it works with the ledger is immutable, and the database is in charge of tracking the current state of the ledger, or sometimes called the world state. The channels are the individual ledgers between the organizations. And the channels are secure networks capable of executing transactions for smart contracts and keeping data. So if we think of channels, they could be individual organizations with their own ledgers. And the organization is the basic entity within the Fabric network and is used for creating identities and for managing functions with respect to transactions, security, smart contracts, and more. And the endorsement policy in Fabric is designed for securely executing transactions, and they're carried out by all the nodes. And the membership services provider is used to store user information, maintain and granting user rights and identities. So an asset is anything of any kind of value that can be exchanged, and the ledger is the current state of the asset transactions. So we talked a little bit about the world state database. As you know, as ledgers are updated, we append to them. We don't go back and change any ledger entries. So what the world state is almost like a helper. It will read and maintain the latest state or the current state of the ledger. And then any subsequent transactions will update the world state. For our lab, let's go out to the hyperledger.org website for Fabric and take a look at what's available there, and take a look at some of the introduction and some of the smaller tutorial videos. So for our lab, here we want to go out to the Hyperledger Fabric website that's part of the Linux Foundation. So take a look at some learning articles, take a look at the video, and take a look at some of the case studies and the introductory assets that are on here. So you can take a look here. You can even join memberships and take a look at some of the white papers and also the training and certification. In summary, we discussed Hyperledger Fabric. It is a blockchain, but it's a multi-ledger blockchain. And it also is a private blockchain. So all identities are known, all roles are known. It still executes smart contracts. It's still immutable, so it has all those same
If you have enjoyed watching this video, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you.
characteristics of our Bitcoin and our Ethereum public blockchains, but it is meant for businesses to conduct transactions with known actors. Our next session will be our foundation in blockchain security. And please, for additional training and additional learning, please consult your learning materials. Coding Bootcamps offers tutorials and coaching sessions in blockchain and blockchain development. And for more blockchain training, again, consult your learning materials. There's more courses on Hyperledger and more courses on Solidity, Ethereum, and Corda. Thank you for watching this session, and we will see you in the next session. Welcome back to this course, Introduction to Blockchain Cybersecurity, a presentation of Coding Bootcamps. This is lesson 4. This is a review of some basic blockchain security concepts. So let's take a look at the foundation of blockchain security. Well, a big part of blockchain security is the hashing function. And you may think of the hashing function as converting text into some unreadable string, and that's almost like encryption. And that's not really what hashes are used for on the blockchain. So hashes are digests of data. So any data value can be stored in a fixed alphanumeric string. And there are several, many, perhaps dozens of hashing algorithms. MD5 is popular, SHA-1, SHA-256. So we're taking a look at an example here of MD5, which hashes data into a 32 character string. So if we look here, the string here, what is blockchain, is hashed into this 32 character string. And if we look here, this 1 million with the commas is hashed into this 32 character string. And 0 is hashed into this 32 character string. What hashes are used for is not to hide the message here. It is to validate that the message has not changed. Hashes are very sensitive to any kind of change. If we would remove the commas here, we wouldn't necessarily change the numeric value. However, the hash would change. If we would say 0.0, we haven't changed the numeric value. However, the hash would change. So we would see any kind of change. And that really is the basis of why blockchain is immutable. All blockchain data is hashed, and that hash is reused in the next block and the block after that, in almost like a tree or a chain type of structure. There, if any previous block changes, that'll change the hash, and we'll know. And since the blockchain is distributed on many nodes, the blockchain or the blocks that have been tampered with can be dropped, and then it can be essentially rebuilt from a different node or restored from a different node. So hashing is meant to detect any kind of change in previous data or any kind of tampering with data. And then there is the cryptographic keys. So here we can see that it is we use a double key encryption for any kind of data. And this is where the data is actually encrypted. So we can see here that every user on the blockchain has 2 keys, a private key and a public key. So Tom wants to send a message to Kelly, and he will use Kelly's public key. That's almost like an address that everybody's aware of. So everybody knows Kelly's public key. So he uses Kelly's public key to encrypt the message. It says, "Hi, Kelly," becomes encrypted by her public key. We get this that no one else can read, and the message is received by Kelly, and Kelly uses her private key to decrypt the message. So only Kelly can decrypt this message. So we use double key encryption every day. If you ever see the site or the web address HTTPS when we go on e-commerce, or if we're looking to update any sensitive data, HTTPS uses the same thing. It does a quick update or exchange of keys, so the application, the web application, can validate that the requester, which is the user, is who he or she says they are. Now, what can happen with blockchain is the loss or the hacking or the insecurity of the private key, because control of the private key is critical in working on a blockchain. If a user's private key would become compromised, or they would lose control of it and somebody else had it, then another user, a bad actor, could take control of his or her data on the blockchain. So it's very important to secure your private key. So in summary, we discussed hashing, and how hashing is not a way of encrypting data, it's really a way of detecting any kind of changes in data. And we did talk about double key encryption. So our next session is going to be advanced blockchain security. And also, please, we've talked about this, but please do consult your learning materials. And if you're interested in any kind of private sessions, private learning for blockchain. And thank you again for watching this session. We'll see you in the next session. Welcome back to this course, Introduction to Blockchain Cybersecurity, a presentation of Coding Boot Camps. This is lesson number 5, Advanced Blockchain Security Concepts. So the first advanced blockchain security concept that we'll discuss is multi-signature. So multi-signature refers to the multiple keys required to authorize a transaction, rather than just a single signature from one key. So key encryption is considered to be strong, but when you have multi-key or multi-signature, it validates that the person that the message is intended for is indeed the one reading it. And it also can allow the reader of the message to actually sign the message, because that reader is the only one with that key. In this video on advanced blockchain security, we are going to discuss zero-knowledge proof. So with zero-knowledge proof, one of the parties acting, the prover, can prove to another party that they know a certain value, they know a certain fact, without conveying any information apart from the fact that they know the value of X. So this is what is called a zero-knowledge proof. It is an important part of cryptography. It's an important protocol. In this video on advanced blockchain security, we are going to discuss stealth address. Stealth address is a technique for obscuring an identification, usually done on a public blockchain. The core property of blockchain is that it is anonymous. So we have these pseudonymous transactions, meaning we don't know who they are. No personal information is known. It's associated with a crypto key because what we see there is a wallet address, which is the transactor's public address. So stealth addresses are private, single use, so they're only they're only used by one individual for one wallet, and they are generated together with a private key using a technique or a protocol called an elliptical curve. So let's take a look at this transaction. Here on the next page, we can see here, this happens to be a Bitcoin transaction. You can see the BTC, and you can see it is quite anonymous. We just have the public address or the wallet ID of this transactor, and we see the amount of transaction moving over here to the wallet address of this transactor, and you can see the amount here in this transaction. So this is a key concept in security for blockchain, and it's a key concept in blockchain cybersecurity. In this video on advanced blockchain security, we are going to talk about ring signatures and ring addresses. So a ring address is actually an address or a signature that can be performed by any member of a group of users with the cryptographic keys. So the transaction message is signed with the ring signature, and it is verified by someone in a particular group without revealing the public key, the sender's identity, the receiver, the signatory, or any other members of the group. And this is an important concept in blockchain cybersecurity because it allows for the concealment of identities of not only one address or one user, but a group of users. So therefore, ring address, or often called ring signature, is a very important concept in blockchain cybersecurity. In this video on advanced blockchain security, we are going to discuss confidential transactions. So we saw a little bit earlier when we were looking at our blockchain explorers that we can see online, we can trace blockchain transactions where the transactors are anonymous, but we still know the amount of the transactions. With confidential transactions, not only the transactors are encrypted, but also the value of the transaction is also encrypted. So the encryption is special because it's still possible to verify that no bitcoins were created or destroyed. In other words, we know that the same amount went from the first transactor to the second transactor, where suddenly there weren't any bitcoins added, but we don't actually see the amount. And confidential transactions do require what we call a soft fork in the blockchain, meaning a block is essentially branched off, and the transactions are validated within it. They can also be added to what we call a side chain as well, because they're the miner or the validator of the transactions needs to indeed validate that there were no value, no additional Bitcoin added or subtracted during the transaction, because again, the value is not known. So in summary, we discussed multi-signature. We discussed zero proof and stealth address, ring signature or address, and we also discussed confidential transactions. So stay tuned for our next session, where we will discuss network level vulnerability and attacks. Please again consult your learning materials for additional information on private tutoring sessions for blockchain. Thank you again for watching this video. This has been a presentation of Coding Bootcamps. Welcome back to this course, Introduction to Blockchain Cybersecurity. This course is a presentation of Coding Bootcamps. So this lesson is Introduction to network level vulnerability attacks for blockchain, how to secure a blockchain network. And again, network level vulnerabilities and attacks. In this video, we are going to discuss the 51% attacks. So the 51%.
Thanks for watching. Please like and share this video.
Attacks have been an attack on a blockchain that have been theorized for a long time. In theory, it is a real attack. However, to gain control of 51% of a public blockchain network requires computing power that would be in excess, most likely in excess of anything that an attacker would hope to gain. Because of the number of nodes, you would have to gain control, and not a very easy thing. You'd have to gain control of 51% of all of the nodes out there. And with all of the nodes for public blockchains, such as Bitcoin, such as Ethereum, it would be a very difficult task, require a lot of computing power, and would be quite expensive. But if we look at the theory of 51% attacks, we can see here that all of the miners, in this case Bob is a miner, all of the miners are trying to add block 13, so they create what's called a soft fork, and we can see our soft fork here. What would happen as Bob is validating transactions, and if Bob won the proof of work, it really wouldn't matter if 51% of all of the nodes were under one single control, because those 51% could essentially vote their own state or their own status of the blockchain. So in other words, they could award or update the ledger so it awards the asset to one individual or several different individuals. So that is the theory behind the 51% attacks. Again, it's not considered to be an attack that is likely because of the computing power that it would take. The blockchain's distributed network makes it unlikely that a 51% attack could take place, but it still is possible. So what would happen is, despite all of the transactions that were validated, in theory, somebody could come in and offer up a new vision of the transactions, essentially awarding all of the tokens to one individual or a group of individuals or different individuals. So that is the theory behind the 51% attacks, that they gain 51% of the voting nodes on the blockchain network. In this video, we are going to talk about network level vulnerabilities and attacks. Denial of service attacks. It is possible on a blockchain network for an attacker to deny service to a legitimate user on the blockchain using malware. So all users, all nodes on the blockchain have to be aware that you do have to make sure that security on your node, including virus checkers, including malware checkers, are up to date, so you can prevent any type of malware attack. Please stay tuned for our next video. In this video on blockchain cybersecurity, we are discussing network level vulnerabilities and attacks. We are going to discuss what are called eclipse attacks. So in eclipse attacks, we can see here that flaws in certain blockchain protocols can disrupt outgoing connections. So we can see here that the blockchain network, in this case, is set up for 117 incoming connections. However, this type of attack now has limited the number of connections to only 8. And when there are so few connections, taking over this level is much, much easier. So this is known as the eclipse attack. Welcome back to this video on blockchain network vulnerability and attacks. In this video, we are going to discuss replay attacks. In a replay attack, it is a cyber attack where the malicious entity intercepts and then repeats the data transmission through the blockchain network. It does resemble the man in the middle. Replay attacks take advantage of blockchain forks. Typically, they take advantage of blockchain forks. And one seeming advantage for the hacker is the hacker can retransmit the message, but do not have to decrypt them. Replay attacks can be and are often used to gain access to user information or other critical information. The attacks can fool financial and other institutions into duplicating transmissions, allowing attackers access to accounts and withdraw funds from the victim's accounts. They also can add a layer where the hacker then becomes aware of other valuable information to further exploit the system. As we discussed a few minutes ago, with a replay attack, the attacker looks to essentially attack the soft fork that the miners are creating on the blockchain. So a strong response to the blockchain replay attack is called replay protection. And in replay protection, a special marker is added to that new ledger that's part of that soft fork that came from the hard fork. And any direct transactions on the soft fork will not be considered valid, and the reverse is also true. In this video for blockchain cybersecurity, we are discussing, again, network level vulnerabilities and attacks. Here we are going to discuss rooting attacks. So again, a malware type of attack or flaws in internet protocols can actually cause for a rerouting of the blocks in a blockchain. So what was determined to be the true blocks is now been rerouted to false blocks, and it could be a malicious character, a bad actor, or just erroneous blocks. So this is called the rooting attack. This course is blockchain cybersecurity. In these videos, we are discussing network level vulnerabilities and attacks. Here we are going to discuss what are called Sybil attacks. And Sybil attacks are similar to rooting attacks. The difference is there is specific malware which causes the rerouting. So we can see here the intended path for the blockchain here and for all the transactions. But some type of forged identity or malware now has caused for a rerouting of the blockchain and the nodes to imposter nodes. And once the network is rerouting to imposter nodes, obviously the data has become unreliable and can serve a bad actor. So please stay tuned for our next session. It's going to be user level vulnerabilities and attacks. And again, please check your learning materials for any type of tutoring or private coaching sessions on blockchain. Thank you for watching this video here on vulnerabilities. Again, our course here is blockchain cybersecurity. Let's continue our discussion on blockchain network level vulnerabilities and attacks. In this video, we will discuss node attacks. We often hear how different blockchain is, but it's also very similar to applications, a typical application running on the internet. Blockchains run on an infrastructure, which are networks of nodes or computers, again, running on the internet. So the same as any other application, blockchain nodes are vulnerable to local node attacks, or the software running on the local node is also subject to attacks. Attackers may exploit a node's inadequate computing power or processing to take it offline. This is a type of denial of service attack, and yes, blockchains are subject to them, although the whole entire blockchain tends to be less vulnerable. Many times a denial of service attack is executed really for recognition of the attacker, so often they boast about what they've done. The response to this typically is that the node is taken offline and very quickly replaced on the network by a new node. So quite often denial of service are a disruption, but they usually don't result in the compromising of user data, network data, or blockchain data. There are exceptions to that, but typically it's done by, like I stated, for recognition purposes. Blockchain application software can also be vulnerable to attackers. Vulnerabilities in the software application may allow attackers to make unauthorized connections. Software is very complex. There are a lot of lines of code in many applications, including blockchain applications, and there will be vulnerabilities. It's just when you have that level of complexity, it is very difficult to discover all of the vulnerabilities. One type of attack is transaction injection, or sometimes called cryptojacking, and that looks to exploit vulnerabilities in software, resulting in fraud or stealing from crypto wallets. It can also create other disruptions. Like any other node on the internet, blockchain nodes are also vulnerable to malware. Such malware typically exploits weaknesses in mining software, and that can also result in fraud and stealing of cryptocurrency. This type of malware that attacks the mining software is referred to as miner exploits or miner exploitation. It may sound like I'm oversimplifying. However, in the case of node attacks, and in the cases we discussed and other cases, the response typically is to use up-to-date network security products, such as firewalls that do both network security and are able to manage connections. Also, application vulnerability scanners. Ethical hacking may be another way to go, although quite often the vulnerability scanners are able to detect far more vulnerabilities than any type of manual ethical hacking. Welcome back to this course, Introduction to Blockchain Cybersecurity. This course is a presentation of Coding Bootcamps. This lesson is Introduction to User-Level Vulnerabilities and Attacks. So we'll proceed here with user-level vulnerabilities and attacks. Typically, the attacks against users is some kind of a wallet-level attack, either fake wallets, exploiting wallets, or wallet design challenges. So a wallet in blockchain does not contain the cryptocurrency that you are transacting in. It actually is your credentials or your address on the blockchain. So the ownership and the amount you own is determined by your address, and your wallet address is that public key. So hot wallet versus cold wallet. So a hot wallet is a wallet that's on a computer, on a smart device, that's running, that's connected to a network. So it's always on the internet. A cold wallet is actually not connected to the internet. It could be on paper, and it has your wallet address or your public key written down.
Thanks for watching. Feel free to add your questions as comments down below.
And you transact by entering it. That's how it's done. It's considered to be more secure than a hot wallet because nobody can get to, since it's not connected, nobody can get to your wallet address. A non-deterministic wallet, this has been popular in the past. This is where the keys are randomly generated. A deterministic wallet determines the keys based on some kind of a passphrase. So you might have seen that when you're creating your account or your wallet, you have to put in some kind of a phrase. It's based on this phrase that your wallet IDs and your keys are generated from, or your passphrase is used as the base for your keys. And a hierarchical wallet is currently the most popular or the latest type of a wallet. This is called the, you'll hear it as an HD wallet, a hierarchical deterministic wallet. And again, it's considered the new age in digital wallets, and it automatically generates hierarchical tree-like structures of public and private keys, thereby addressing the problems of users having to generate their own. So in this video, we discussed user-level attacks on wallets. Stay tuned for our next session where we have process-level vulnerabilities and attacks. And please again consult your learning materials for private tutoring sessions and other training sessions for blockchain and blockchain cybersecurity. Again, thank you for watching this video on user-level attacks. This video is blockchain cybersecurity and a presentation of coding bootcamps. In this video, we'll discuss user-level vulnerabilities and attacks in more detail. Let's begin by discussing airdrop and hard fork scams. Quite often, blockchain communities split or separate. Many times it's because of irreconcilable differences. Bitcoin Cash and Ethereum Classic are two examples of the separation of blockchain communities. Bitcoin Cash is a spin-off or a hard fork of Bitcoin, and Ethereum Classic is a spin-off or a hard fork of the original Ethereum. Users of the original network may elect to use tokens on either or both of the divergent chains. Post-fork users who are aware of the new fork, notice I said aware of the new fork, will find they have equal number of tokens on both networks as they had on the original. So you can gather here that users can be fooled by a scam that discusses a blockchain hard fork. Here's an example of a blockchain hard fork. We can see here Bitcoin blockchain and the Bitcoin Cash blockchain. At one time there was the original fork, and the software has been taken, and the new blockchain begins where the previous blockchain, the spot in the previous blockchain left off. And at this point here, the software is updated to create a new blockchain based on what the new community believes should be the rules in the blockchain. So They had everything in common until this point, and at this point they separate into two divergent or two separate blockchains. And sometimes a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. There could be users that are familiar with this type of community separation and a little bit familiar of how it works. However, bad actors or fraudulent actors look to take advantage of users and actually look to fool them by discussing or fraudulently tricking them into thinking that there is a new fork of a blockchain they were using. Users understand that their balance of a cryptocurrency is the number of tokens attributed to their public address on that cryptocurrency's blockchain, to which the user holds the corresponding cryptographic private key. Airdrops are when developers begin the new blockchain with the history of the previous blockchain. Parent blockchain users get the cryptographic credentials necessary to access a corresponding number of tokens on the new blockchain as if it was airdropped to them. Again, it's because of the way that hard forks proceed and airdrops proceed that can potentially result in user wallets being compromised, because the idea is to fool users into thinking that they now have a balance on a hard fork, and then the bad actors can go about the process of stealing the wallet information and ultimately stealing the victim's cryptocurrency. Public cryptocurrency transactions are executed anonymously, and anytime you have anonymity in the process, there is the possibility for fraud. If we don't know who we're transacting with, the chances are there could be it could be a bad actor, no question about it. The only thing we know about the person we are transacting with or the entity we are transacting with is this very long string, this public address. And again, that's all we know. So we can even see here that this transaction may be suspicious, because we even see two different types of cryptocurrency here on two different types of blockchains. So it's always important that you understand who it is, and if it matters, who you are transacting with, because if for whatever reason you are provided the wrong address, that cryptocurrency will be sent to that wallet, and nobody owns the blockchain, so therefore there's nobody to go to roll that transaction back. So if funds or cryptocurrency is set to a fake wallet or an incorrect wallet, again, it is permanent, and that cryptocurrency is lost. So always know and always be careful about the other actor in the transaction, and always be aware of the possibility of fraud. Fake sites and fake site attacks. So fake sites can be compared to phishing. I think by this point, everyone at least has heard of phishing. That's where a user is fooled somehow, either by an email or maybe a phone call or text, into entering his or her, in this case, his or her blockchain credentials into a fake website that quite often may appear to be an exchange. A message very, very similar to this is on the Bitcoin website. So it talks about how phishing websites are replica websites designed to steal login credentials or prompt the user to install malware. And they warn, do not install or log into a website unless you're absolutely sure it's legitimate. And phishing websites may also appear as sponsored results in search engines, so at the very top of the search engine. So please be aware of that. And also app marketplaces may have apps that are also fake apps, which will steal your login credentials or your key information. So again, be very wary that you aren't downloading a fake app or clicking into a sponsored link that is indeed a fake website designed to steal your user information or your keys. Something else to be aware of are what are called blackmail scams or extortion scams. Quite often these messages are sent randomly and looking to fool somebody into responding and paying a bad actor with Bitcoin, again, using that anonymity of the public blockchain to hide behind. So don't be fooled by any kind of a blackmail type of scam. They are becoming more prevalent, and it is something to watch out for, and it does claim many victims. Now let's discuss wallet exploits. So wallet exploits are attacks where vulnerabilities in wallet application software are abused. So it's almost always hot wallets. Recently well-known crypto wallet hacks are the Big Spender and the RFB. Both of these types of hacks or attacks look to take advantage of the several minutes of time for the cryptocurrency transactions to be confirmed and validated. During this, what is called block time, the hack attempts to reuse or double spend the recently transacted cryptocurrency. So while it is still in process, this hack looks to take the cryptocurrency that is technically still in the user's wallet and looks to spend it on something else before it's updated permanently in the ledger and cannot be double spent. This is actually considered to be a very serious vulnerability and did shake the Bitcoin community within the last 12 months. Some other wallet hacks or exploitations include canceling wallet transactions. That's also a form of denial of service, and stealing credentials. Sounds like oversimplification again, but the overwhelming recommended action is to make sure that all hot wallet applications are up to date before they are used. So in summary here, we discussed airdrop and fork scams. We discussed fake wallets, fake sites, and we just concluded with wallet exploitations. And stay tuned for more discussion of blockchain vulnerabilities and attacks. Welcome back to this course, Introduction to Blockchain Cybersecurity. This course is a presentation of Coding Bootcamps. This lesson is the introduction to system and process level vulnerabilities and attacks. So let's discuss the process level vulnerabilities and the types of attacks. So there is a Verge attack, a Pigeon Coin hack, and an SPV mining exploitation. So let's first discuss the Verge hack. So the Verge hack exploits the privacy of users and is very close, if not identical, to your typical stolen credential type of attack, where whoever steals the credentials is entitled to spend your money. In the case of blockchain, they can spend your cryptocurrency. So it's almost like an identity theft or stolen credentials type of a hack. The Pigeon Coin hack exploits a mine block in order to pull back a cryptocurrency or a Bitcoin that's already been spent. So this is a double spending. Now, built into the, especially with Bitcoin, Ethereum, all of the popular cryptocurrencies, there are, it's already built into the logic of the applications, to prevent double spending. Same with dollars too. US dollars, digital dollars, electronic dollars are also set up the same way, that once the ledger is updated, the user cannot reuse that coin or that cryptocurrency. However, it may be possible, and the hacks have happened where hackers have gone and been able to pull back, exploiting vulnerabilities in the ledger, pull back a particular cryptocurrency and spend it again. So
if you have enjoyed watching this video, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you.
Pigeon coin hack is possible for a double spending of an amount of cryptocurrency. And then there is the SVP mining exploit. And this is a term that's commonly used. It's less than a full node validation mining. So it usually means that miners skip the validation of the block. And in the block, that's where all of the transactions are validated. That's what miners are supposed to be doing. So if the transactions are skipped, some of the transactions can be incorrectly updated. So there are times where, and usually with the current consensus algorithms, this is they are looking to solve this issue, but it still can happen that the verifications are not done, and bad actors that are very familiar with the network can take advantage of the skipped validations. So in this lesson, we talked about process level attacks, and in our next session, we're going to talk about smart contract vulnerabilities and the attacks that can come from that. So please consult your learning materials for any kind of blockchain private coaching sessions or private tutoring sessions. And again, thank you for watching this video. And this video is a presentation of Coding Bootcamps. Welcome back to this course, Introduction to Blockchain Cybersecurity. This course is a presentation of Coding Bootcamps. This lesson is Introduction to Smart Contract Vulnerability and Attacks, and we're going to discuss how to build secure blockchain applications. So smart contracts and blockchain applications are really one and the same thing, and here we're going to discuss vulnerability and attacks. A little bit about smart contracts is, even though they're called contracts, they can enforce a legal agreement and they can make payments. However, to this date, no court in the world has ruled on the enforceability of blockchain smart contracts. Solidity is a language used on Ethereum and other blockchains for building smart contracts, and we'll discuss some of its characteristics. We'll also go over auditing of smart contracts, which is a very good idea, and go over some management tools. Quite often, but not always, bad application development, bad programming practices are behind a lot of the vulnerabilities in smart contracts. And there's also techniques called re-entry, where there was an unexpected re-entry to the a function in the smart contract. Access control, so not knowing who is operating on the smart contract, who the actors are, or a bad identity. Arithmetic problems, unvalidated or unchecked return values. Of course, there's always the denial of service. Weak randomness, and race conditions, which is not only a problem with smart contracts, but they're problems in general, and timestamp dependence that is not consistent with logic. Solidity, which is what this function is written in, has a useful function called a fallback function. However, in this case, once this function withdraws the correct amount, an attacker can run a fallback function and then call this withdrawal again, withdrawing more to a different address until the till the balance is 0. The same thing again, called access control. So again, it is that fallback function. If the attacker has access to create and call a fallback function, that fallback function can call this withdrawal and keep withdrawing to the attacker's account again until this balance is 0. The integer underflow and overflow is an attack that happens in more than just smart contracts, but here an attacker can take advantage of this to withdraw more than his or her account balance. And the way that this works often is a variable is set up as an integer, and a value that's greater is passed to that integer, which sometimes results in the smart contract wrapping the value as an unsigned integer. And we can see here uint, and you can see here uint again, so unsigned. That would allow for the withdrawals to be greater than what is generally allowed for certain balances. So it could be exploited, and an attacker could end up withdrawing more from an account that's greater than his or her balance. Another type of attack is called bad randomness, and that's attacking functions kind of replying on its unpredictability. So we could see here we're using a random number here in this solidity, and random numbers do have a certain degree of unpredictability associated with them. And we see here that we are sending a balance. So in this case, this could be considered a sloppy method for managing the balance. Same thing here, using the block hash and making a transfer of a balance here. So contracts should always be looked at. The rules need to be evaluated, and any type of randomness should be obviously scrutinized very closely. Here's a denial of service attack, and obviously denial of service is a problem in more than just smart contracts. But if we take a look here, what's happening is the transactor is being shut out, and the miners that are managing these nodes are collecting what are called the gas fees for processing the transaction, but they are taking advantage of the access control here. And we could see here that there's also an issue with the access control. So denying the proper parties access and then essentially pocketing the gas fees is another way that smart contracts are attacked. Very, very often, smart contracts rely on time and timing of when to start and when to start paying. Things like coin offerings are very often based on a particular date and time for the payments to begin or for the tokens to be issued. It is possible to manipulate and exploit that time. So the timing is done on smart contracts with the epoch time. So timing and the way that the contract interacts with time is very crucial. So you do want to go through your battery of tests and validate that your time when your contract can actually execute is correct and the time logic is correct. The other thing is that the timing, this is a date and time here, it's called the epoch time. It can get confusing because it's a long number. So we want to make sure that when we test this, obviously, the correct values are used, and when it is finally set to go, that the proper time is updated. Again, it could be confusing, and someone could notice that the timing is wrong and actually access your contract too early. So again, you need to validate the timing. There are more and more tools coming on the market for smart contract auditing. For contract flow analysis, there is a tool called SolGraph, and Sol is short for Solidity. Dynamic code analysis, Mythex and Manticore. Vulnerability scanning tools. Also taint analysis, so looking for any kind of possibilities in low-level code. That's what our taint analysis is doing. And test coverage. So most Solidity tools do come with unit testing, so you can actually validate that all of your functions are being tested. It can run automatically, and it can also help you with regression testing to always validate that your Solidity tests are running as they should be. And it's a good practice, really. This type of security, this type of hygiene is always a good practice, especially for smart contracts, because they do make payments. They can transfer funds, so the more tools, the better, and they can attract, obviously, bad actors. So we want to make sure that this contract is running like it should be, and it's well audited in case there are problems, so that they can be addressed as quickly as possible. So to summarize, in this lesson, we discussed smart contract vulnerabilities in Solidity. We discussed reentry, access control, denial of service, weak randomness, weaknesses related to timing, and we also reviewed some tools that can help strengthen and find problems and vulnerabilities with our Solidity smart contracts. Our next session will be security alternatives in DLT architecture. DLT stands for distributed ledger technology. That is a blockchain is an example of distributed ledger technology. And please consult your training materials for information on tutoring, private tutoring, and coaching. And thank you again for watching this video. This video is a presentation of coding boot camps. Welcome back to this course, Introduction to Blockchain Cybersecurity. This is a presentation of coding boot camps. This is our 10th lesson and our final lesson, and here we're going to introduce an alternative architecture to traditional blockchain. It is a DLT architecture, which blockchain is also a DLT architecture. DLT stands for distributed ledger technology, and we're going to talk about the security benefits. So the type of architecture is called DAG, Directed Acyclic Graph DLT, and it's a more recent solution that offers all the benefits of blockchain, but with better performance. Performance has long been an issue with traditional blockchains such as Ethereum, such as Bitcoin. The amount of time that it takes to validate transactions and add new blocks is, by today's standards, quite slow. The current block time, say, of Bitcoin is about 15 minutes. So although the block adds several transactions, it's still relatively slow in performance. Again, the DAG architecture looks to greatly improve on that performance while still delivering the same benefits. With this architecture directed, we have the linking, so we're using linking, so the links all point in the same directions with earlier transactions linked to later transactions and so on. So there you have the example of transactions linking to one another, so you have the immutability of the blockchain. Acyclic, so loops are not possible with the DAG architecture, so a transaction cannot loop back onto itself after linking to another transaction. And the graph, the G, so this is a mesh of connected transactions that can be represented as nodes in a graph network, kind of almost like a virtual node. And here the nodes are joined to each other by links. One aspect of blockchain, traditional blockchain, is that mining takes a lot of time. the miners actually validate transactions. So real-time transactions are slow on blockchains like Bitcoin. DAG, distributed ledger technologies, are built for speed. There is no need for mining because all of the transactions are linked to one another. So it's faster transactions per second, and it's a linking data structure. Again, mining is not needed because each transaction is linked to one another. They're validated at the same time, and that gives that delivers more real-time transactions. Validations of transactions they're signed by the transactors.
Thanks for watching. Please like and share this video.
The time again is much faster, more real-time validation, and the networks are simpler, so it introduces virtualization and real-time linking. DAG networks can also be set up faster, obviously perform faster, and have better security. So in summary, we discussed the DAG distributed ledger technology architecture and how it differs from traditional blockchain. And we have all the benefits, but the DAG architecture is set up to have a faster network, faster processing, and more reliable security as it's less complex and all of the transactions are linked, and the complexity, the lower complexity makes any kind of tampering more detectable. Again, please consult your training materials for any private blockchain tutoring sessions or coaching sessions. And again, also consult your training materials for more classes about blockchain, Bitcoin, overviews of Hyperledger and Ethereum, a comprehensive overview of blockchain use cases and blockchain technology and blockchain development. And again, there are more classes, Corda, more on Ethereum and Solidity, so please do look into it. Thank you for taking this course, an introduction to blockchain cybersecurity. Again, a presentation of coding boot camps. Welcome to this lab. In this lab, we are going to look at smart contract security, particularly re-entry and access control, and how we can secure our smart contracts to work properly. Now, you will have the code for this contract. This contract is being run out of a integrated development environment called Remix, and the URL is remix.ethereum.org. Hopefully you can see that here. And I'm just going to enter that and update the browser. Now this browser is zoomed in quite far, so the text might look might not look like something you're used to seeing, but that's okay. We're doing this strictly for demo purposes. Now you can follow along with this. You can rewind this lab and try it all yourself. So what I'm doing is I'm opening this contract. Its name is payable.sol, short for Solidity. This is all Solidity. The contract name is payable contract. And this can get a little involved, so documenting this can be a little confusing, but I'm going to demo all the steps to running this contract so we can see how this contract is secure. So there are steps in here because contracts are very role-based, and you'll already see some roles here. We're going to have a payer and two vendors, and we're going to pay them using a smart contract. But if we take a look here at the smart contract again, we can see some data structures here called mapping, which I'm sure you've seen before. The contract is very much like a Java class. We have a constructor. We have a vendor, and we have some attributes for the vendor. And we have some functions, which are like methods, where we are going to count our vendors and add our vendors. So we have a vendor count here that we can return. We have a function we can issue our currency or our payments. In this case, it's going to be Ether. because we're running on Ethereum. And then we're going to send our payment. So this code may look familiar to what you actually saw in the class. This is using similar code here. The only difference is this code has been secured, and we'll briefly discuss other ways to secure this. So we're actually going to enter some vendors, and we are going to pay them. And we are going to also make sure that our wallets, our Ethereum wallets, have the correct amount to actually make the payments. A little about Remix, if you're familiar with IDEs or integrated development environments. We're on this module here. They call these modules over here to the left. This is where we can create new, download, or open. You see we have some existing ones in here. I've already opened an existing contract. So what I'm going to do now is go to the compile module. So I'm just going to click on this compile module button. And then we see this button right here to compile our code. So we're going to compile it using the Ethereum virtual machine. And that was successful because we got the check there. That's good. This is going to give us a lot of options here for right now. Just follow along. Now we're going to go to deploy. So we are using what's called the JavaScript environment, and the JavaScript environment gives us addresses, Ethereum addresses, simulated Ethereum addresses, and it also gives us simulated Ether, and Ether is the Ethereum cryptocurrency. So what we're going to do now is go into the deployment, and contracts are deployed to an address. So we can see here from this drop down, notice it says here the JavaScript VM environment. There are other environments, but we are going to use the JavaScript, and they give us these addresses here. And these addresses are almost always the same. Notice we're deploying under this address. And if you can click copy here if you want to see that address. The addresses are very long. You can see them right here. And sometimes they're very difficult to read. I just try to read the last 5 characters that are in the address so I can manage it better. So we're just going to deploy the payable contract. So we're going to click the deploy button, and that is also a transaction. So we can see here in the output in the console that was successful. We can see the check mark there. And this button right here, the circle, is the clear console. I'm going to clear it just because we're going to refer back to the console, and we don't have a lot of space. And again, I have this zoomed in quite a bit just so it's easier for everybody to follow and see. So we've deployed our contract, and so let's click on that down caret, and let's scroll down. So we have our contract deployed now, and let's click here on the down caret, and if we scroll down here, we can actually see, and I'm going to clear this one more time, we can actually see our how we can interact with our contract. So we can see here the buttons for the methods, the functions, the data that we are building here in our smart contract. So if we look over here, we see add vendor, and we see add vendor, and add vendor takes 1, 2, 3 arguments, and we could either pass them in directly here in this one field, or we can click on this drop down caret. We can see the 3 fields here. So sometimes that's easier to do, in my opinion. We see issue. Issue has 1, 2 arguments, and we can see them both here. So we can use some of these tools to help us just run the contract easier. And then we have some buttons here for returning value. So these are calling methods and functions for the most part, and this is returning some data here. Sometimes there's input. So if we want to balance, we have to add an address. If there's a vendor, we have to add the vendor number. And notice here we have a vendor ID number right here. So let's follow our steps here. So notice we're issuing from this address up here, which ends in EDDC4. So that's important to know. We're going to issue to a certain Ethereum address or Ethereum wallet. So let's go to issue and go to the drop down. And the address that we're issuing to is right here, and this is a long string, so I'm going to copy it and then paste it into the receiver address. That looks right. And the amount that we're issuing, it says here we're going to issue 500. And then we're going to click transact, and this transaction was mined. You can click on this caret all the way over to the right and get some details if you want to. But for now, I'm just going to clear the console, and then I'm going to close up right here. Then we're going to add the vendors. So we have to do some vendor mapping. It's zero indexed, so just be aware of that. Meaning the first one is number 0, the second one is number 1. So we're going to add the vendors. And if we remember, adding a vendor has 1, 2, 3 arguments. Here are 3 arguments. And we're going to use the ones up here given to us. First vendor is Max. And we have to have Max's wallet address or his public key. That's needed because in blockchain, we need to know the address that we're sending to, or your public address. And the amount that he's owed is 300. And then we're going to click transact. And all right, and that transaction was mined, and we can look down here and get some details again. Close it up and then clear the console, and then I'm just going to close up this add vendor because we're going to see Sarah here has an address, so we've got to open up add vendor one more time. We're going to this time put in Sarah. We have to make sure we carefully paste in Sarah's address, because if we don't carefully paste it in, it's very unforgiving. It's going to tell us it's an invalid address. And then in this case, Sarah's owed 100. And then we're going to click transact again, and that was successful. And again, we can get some data on that. And you can see you can collapse away the console, but I'm going to clear it here, and I'm going to close up add vendor. So we've made our issue, and so now we can see the balance of the issuer. And if we come down here, we are building up a balance right here. So issue balance, we can click it, and it's 500. So that's what was originally issued. So that's what I have in my wallet, and I am the address that ends in FA733C. And if you don't believe me, I can take this address here that ends in 733C. I can paste it in, and I can click balance, and I'll see it's 500. Our vendor count, we can click on vendor count because we're adding vendors, and we have vendor account here. And we know we have 2 because we added 2. And all this time, all these transactions are being mined, but I'm going to clear. And so what we want to do now is we want to pay our vendors. So we want to make sure I have 500 Ether to pay our vendors. I owe one vendor 300, and I owe another vendor 100. So if we come down here, we see the send function, or yes, this is very similar to a method in Java. So we can see here, it's going to loop through, and it's going to get the amount owed, and it's going to pay that amount owed, and it's going to deduct that amount, and it's going to increase the receiver amount. So, and it's also going to write some data and manage the balance for us. So this is how we want to make sure that in order to be secure, we go ahead and we want to code it just like this. And we can even hide this, make it almost like a service, and have extra data around it. This is a very robust type of language, but as we saw before, there are some techniques that attackers could use. So we just want to make sure the code is solid, just like this one. So this one is reasonably secure. So what I'm going to do now is click this send function, and we should see that the vendors get paid, and my balance goes down from 500. It should go down to 100 because I'm going to pay 300 and then another 100 Ether. So I'm going to click this send function right now. Before I do this, though, I have to change the address of the caller of this contract. So far we've been working with this address, this initial address where we use the deployment that ends in EDDC4, but we've got to change it to the address where we've issued the $500 to. That's important, or else we're going to get errors. So let's go up here to the drop down and make sure we run it now out of this account here that ends in FA733C. And notice I have also this 100 Ether, virtual or virtual Ether for what they call gas fees. Gas fees are Ether that we pay to complete transactions. However, my balance is still 500. I can see it right here. And so I still have that. So what I'm going to do again is we're going to go down here and we're going to run this send function and double check my address again. The address is correct. And that might be the hardest part of this lab, is just making sure that you're running from the right address. So just be aware of that. It's easy to make that mistake. But let's click on our send button. And we can see here that the transaction was successfully mined. Let's click here on this caret. We can go down. We can get some details. We can get some details here. We had a send. And if you look very closely, you can see the addresses in here. And you can see the 300 and the 100 in here. The amounts going up. So this is a log, and the emit here was sending all this information to this log. You can there's a copy button here. You can copy it out to the clipboard and onto some maybe a document where it may be easier to read, but I'm going to clear it for right now. And let's do some checking. So we should see now that the balance, our issuer balance, should be $400 less, or 100, and that's true. That's what happened. That's great. And now we can even get our balance from our vendors. So if we come up here, we need to get Max's address. So let's get Max's wallet. Max's wallet started off with nothing, and now Max's wallet should have, I just pasted Max's address in there. If I click there, Max looks like he should have 300, and that's what Max has. I'm going to clear the console here. And also Sarah. I'm going to put her address in here. And again, you have to do some copy pasting because the addresses are long. So we click here, and it is indeed 100. So all of this is in our Ethereum blockchain. So please do rewind these steps, go through the steps in this lab, take a look at the code as opposed to the code that we saw, and just get this working the way that that we would expect. But let's take a look here. If we try to run this again, so the amount we owed has not changed for our vendors. We can still see here we have 100. So let's try to run this one more time, but now my balance is only 100. Can I continue to issue beyond 100? Think about it. Look at this here and think about it. We always get that the amount here has to be greater than the balance, or else we're going to throw an invalid asset message. So that's important. So we're going to check our balance. So this requirement is key as far as securing this smart contract from payments. And notice again, the amount has to be greater than or equal to the balance of the sender. And that MSG is a special amount here, is a special function here that we can use to get the balance of a sender. So let's try it again and see what happens if we get an invalid number of assets. Let's click send one more time. And oh, look at this. So we do get invalid number of assets. And if we click here, we can look through and see that we get the error, reason, invalid number of assets. So that is how we are securing this smart contract, how we're using blockchain cybersecurity to secure our payment systems. So again, try that on your own. Go through this, enter this in, rewind this lab several times. It's a lot to document. It's certainly easier for you to watch this and go through the steps. It can get a little confusing if you don't see it run and see the inputs. Again, try it, and please do come back to Coding Bootcamps for Solidity training and Ethereum training. Thank you for taking this course, Introduction to Blockchain Cybersecurity, presented by Coding Bootcamps. In this course, we discuss blockchain cybersecurity solutions. Here's a list of topics you learned. We had a brief overview of blockchain. We looked at the Ethereum blockchain. We also discussed Hyperledger Fabric blockchain. We talked about the foundations of blockchain security and advanced cryptographic techniques and methods. We looked at network-related vulnerabilities, the types of attacks and the defense, user-related vulnerabilities, the types of attacks and how to defend against them, smart contract-related vulnerabilities, the ways that the smart contracts can be attacked, and a way that we can better secure our smart contracts. And we looked at the security alternative of distributed ledger architectures. And again, DLT is distributed ledger technology, and blockchain is an example of distributed ledger technologies. And we looked at a lab for smart contract security. We looked at a reentry type of vulnerability and an access control type of vulnerability, and how we can better secure the smart contracts. Congratulations again, you've successfully finished the class. Please look into these classes as follow-ups. All of these classes are available through Coding Bootcamps. There's Hyperledger Fabric for administrators, Hyperledger Fabric for developers, Ethereum blockchain development, and Introduction to Python programming. Once again, thank you for taking this course, and Coding Bootcamps thanks you. We will see you in the next course.